So I wanted to start by really talking about my love of buttermilk, and I prepared a little bit of a statement about why I think buttermilk is important. And maybe many of you are here today because of your love of buttermilk also. The power of buttermilk is the power of tradition. Buttermilk is as good as it is. You don't need to innovate it. It's a metaphor for recognizing that some things are good and don't need innovating, and that some traditions are worth keeping. I want to talk today about the power of buttermilk at a time when the tech scene offers vacuous promises for disruption, pivots, and growth hacks. At a time when corporate brands are trying to fulfill our spiritual needs by offering us doses of belonging as consumers and as employees. At a time when our seeker infrastructure and sacred spaces have been dismantled in favor of accelerators, hackathons, and conferences. We are living within the tyranny of the urgent, and urgency, I believe, is a waste of time. So now to some of my story. I started off in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I was born in a very agrarian community, and then I left there when I was 18, and I went across the states to Silicon Valley. And I did this in an effort to understand what technology is being created that will shape our future. And so part of what I wanted to understand was the difference. And there were some real things that I noticed right away. First of all, where I'm from, you respect your elders. Elders have this real premium. You listen, they tell stories. It's part of what makes us wiser. But in Silicon Valley, you respect youth. There's a premium on this kind of Wunderkind, these young kids who are in their 20s, who are building startups. And if you're in your 30s and 40s, you feel a little bit obsolete. And the other thing I noticed was this focus on cowboy entrepreneurship, or this idea of the lone entrepreneur, the hero, the sort of prophet. And back in the Amish community, we don't have these cowboy entrepreneurs. We have collaborative entrepreneurs. We have communities of entrepreneurs. And so I started asking, well, what are the gods? Who are the prophets in Silicon Valley? And why do we value them so highly? You know, are they after their egos? Are they after innovation-building products? Or are they really bringing their heart and soul into things? And it's funny to me because many people worship Steve Jobs like he was Gandhi. But he wasn't Gandhi. He didn't have a message of love. And yet at the same time, my first experiences with technology, many of your experiences with technology perhaps, were built on this great sense of wonder and awe and what is possible. I spoke to people in the Valley about their first experiences on an internet chat room or using a search engine or even being on Wi-Fi for the first time. And they all have this kind of nostalgia. They have this sense of what was really possible, and it's this sense of flow and excitement about the future. And yet, a lot of that wonder, next slide, has gone away. A lot of that childish desire to interact with technology, that childish sense of what's possible, isn't what's there today. Today, we are interacting with technology that is turning us into zombies. We have push notifications, we have addictive interface designs, we have these transactional relationships on LinkedIn and Facebook, and it's not bringing out the best of what makes us human. It's also changing our brains. I read recently that we're losing our ability to read deeply, that because of all this sort of ADD culture, we're skimming and scanning, and we're losing our ability to even read. And, it's also impacting our subconscious. I had this dream the other day that was really, really boring, where I was just liking things on Facebook. And so this whole, digital culture is entering into our minds. Video game culture is making us really, really impulsive. And so I'm really interested in this relationship between technology and our humanity. I know sometimes when I go on browsers, for example, and they freeze, if you have that happen to you, and I think, oh, it's Providence, I wasn't meant to be on that website or something. And so we're finding these weird permutations of these seeker instincts transformed onto the tech community. so I started collecting all these different witness statements from different folks. And what I think is interesting, hopefully you guys can all see this, but people really don't like who they're becoming. They don't like who digital technology is making them into. There's a kind of self-loathing at work. And so I started saying, well, what is the sin landscape of digital technology? What are some of the sins that this technology is creating? And the first one that was the most obvious to me was pride, was the sense that we have all these startup founders who have these huge egos and don't really have that cosmological awareness, that sense of humility, that sense of being in service to something else. And so then I became interested in the solution space. Well, what do? Do we all become Amish? Do we all get off the grid and unplug and decelerate? And this is popular right now in San Francisco. You have digital detoxes where people can go away and they give their cell phones and they get back to this earlier time. But I don't think that's actually a good thing. I don't think we're all meant to be hermits. I still believe in this childish hope that we can use technology to amplify our humanity. And so this is one wave within the solution space. I call it nostalgia tech. But it's basically these ideas that there are a number of people innovating right now to do things to protect us from technology. There is an app, for example, called Self-Control that you can use so that you limit your exposure to certain websites where you might procrastinate. And this is funny that we need an app for self-control. There's another one called Off Time that does something very similar. And then there are all these like retro tech things. So there are all these people that are bringing back technology from simpler times. And nostalgia is really this desire to go back into the past. And I also don't think that's a viable pathway. So what I think we need to do, and I love how many people here today have slides about the universe or reference the universe. It's a really great space that we've created. But my sense of being within the universe is a challenge to entrepreneurs to cosmos-proof their startups. So what does that mean? That basically means having a kind of existential awareness about your place in the universe. It's almost like if you were to go forward 200 years and look back at your business plan, would that be a legacy that you would want to leave? Is that something that can really be of service to the world and to human evolution and to just the smallness of us? And so there were some startups that I met within Silicon Valley and also in the wider world that are taking this approach. I call them existential entrepreneurs because they're building things that really make a difference and that matter. And they're doing it from a place of why. They're really questioning this why. They're not just building another app to get rich. And so the first one I want to mention is the New Hive. And the New Hive started not even as a startup. They started as a question, which was, how do we change self-expression online? And so it was 3 of them, and they went and lived on an island off the coast of Seattle, and for a whole year with chickens and everything, just figured out this question. And they built this amazing platform that's called the New Hive, where it's basically keeping the internet weird. It's this space where it's a total blank canvas where you can really put out anything you want to the world. And when you think about our self-expression on Facebook or Twitter, it's so limited. And so New Hive is really changing that conversation. And another example is Toy Wheel. And I think Toy Wheel really connects to that sense of childhood wonder. Toy Wheel is not building games that are addictive for children. They're building flow experiences. And so they're really understanding childhood psychology and trying to create a little bit of augmented reality with sort of digital tech, but also doing things in real life to get kids to experience play and all that that means in a non-addictive way. Similar to that is DIY.org, which is a great platform where kids and adults can become makers, where they can share anything from tips on archery and how you do that to creating solar projects in your own backyard. And so it's a digital platform, but it takes people offline. It takes them out into the real world making experiences, and then they can plug into a digital community when they come back. And the next startup is a startup called Pigeonhole. And Pigeonhole is fantastic because I love books and I love reading. And what they're doing is they're creating a very streamlined way of allowing authors and readers to interact with each other. They take out the whole publishing business altogether, and they provide this direct channel. And they were really founded on this Dickens idea of releasing content in staves, which is basically weekly. So rather than reading a whole novel, which apparently we don't have the attention span for anymore, it's really this idea that you can, it's almost a little bit nostalgic, that you can get pieces weekly, and then you have this really awesome engagement with the author of that piece. And the last project or startup is Wisdom Hackers. And a lot of Wisdom Hackers is happening in the real world. People, the community is digital, and there are digital mechanisms for the community to interact. But the basic idea is that we all sit with burning questions, and we don't have the space to really probe into them. And we've lost all this seeker infrastructure, these places where we can acquire wisdom. And so part of what Wisdom Hackers is meant to do is bring back that accountability and give people self-permission to explore these really angsty, soulful questions that they're all sitting with. And this is an emerging community that is forming. And so my challenge really for you is, you don't have to wear a bonnet, but for all of you to unlock your inner Amish. You know, the future is what we create of it. And so I think from everyone that I've spoken to, we all have this shyness sometimes, or these critiques of technology and what it's doing to us that we don't let out. And so we need to begin to have more of that conversation. So this is my challenge. Really unlock that Amish, that Luddite instinct inside you, and bring that to the world so that we can design technology that better amplifies our humanity. Thank you.